It's time now for business, and Sandra Afenu has joined me in the studio. Hello, Sandra.
Hi, Israel. Good evening.
How are you? Good
I'm
evening.
very well, thank you.
Okay, so what's coming up?
We'll be talking about the oil block bidding process and the powers that has been given to the energy minister. Discretionary powers is creating a lot of confusion out there. So we'll be talking about that. We'll speak to the experts as well.
All right.
All right. Hello, good evening. My name is Sandra Esinam Apenu, and I'm here for business. Now, Chairman of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, Dr. Stephen Mantiao, has rejected claims by some oil and gas companies that low quality of data on oil blocks is compelling them to go for direct negotiations rather than competitive bidding. This, he believes, will not be good justification because the principle of going into direct negotiation is different from competitive bidding. Dr. Mantiao spoke on the sideline of the Society's scorecard report on Ghana's first upstream oil and gas round. Here's a report by Ebenezer Sapute.
After government launched the first bidding process and licensing round for some oil blocks in the western region, about 10 of the companies that submitted bids had to go for direct negotiation with authority. This development has been described as a sign of low interest in the country's oil fields. The situation has been blamed on the low quality of data on various oil blocks and small size of acreages. In an interview with Joy Business after the launch of the Citizens Scorecard on pre-qualification process, Dr. Steve Mantiao rejected the claim.
What they are telling us is that they did not even evaluate the prospectivity of the data set they had in deciding to go out there to look for, companies to come and bid for our oil blocks. Secondly, you also find that a number of the companies that withdrew from the bid round have opted to do direct negotiation. So question is, if the quality of data was that poor, to dissuade them from entering into the competitive process, how has the quality improved to generate interest in direct negotiations? So you find that for me, the reason companies may be more interested in direct negotiation rather than in open competitive bidding is that in direct negotiations, they have a leverage to ensure that they get favorable terms.
Meanwhile, the inadequate public knowledge on the companies to be awarded the blocks through direct negotiation is said to be undermining the quality of the competitive bidding process. Here is Edna Osei, Africa Associate of the Natural Resource Governance Institute.
Just a few things that we thought could be done well. Just like how the minister will come out about the discretionary on direct negotiations and also making information well deposited on the official website. So those kind of things, but not necessarily what went wrong per se, yes.
The report is part of initiatives by the civil society to improve transparency in the extractive sector.
To other stories now, and the Ghana Revenue Authority is expected to introduce some tax reforms for the e-commerce and telecommunications industries to help improve revenue generation from the sector. The authority is expected to do this through improved auditing of the sector. This was made known at the ongoing technical workshop for VAT administrators in Africa.
The VADA Technical Workshop is an annual event which brings together administrators and commissioners from some African countries including Ghana, Rwanda, Malawi, Uganda, Tanzania and Sierra Leone to discuss current developments in taxation and also equip participants with new skills. The participants are also considering the increasing importance of digitization as tax administration, the need for auditing of telecommunication companies. According to the Ghana Revenue Authority, these industries contribute about 12% of Ghana's GDP, a percentage lower than the expected 20%. Welbeck Asaria Samoa is Chief Revenue Officer of the Ghana Revenue Authority.
For the telecom, we are all aware the sort of business that they are doing. They are doing so much business in the various countries. So it is up to VADA, which provides the platform for the member countries to help build the capacity of the staff so that they can audit properly and come out with the resources, or let's say the revenue that is actually needed to generate or to develop the various member states.
He added that improved auditing techniques would be introduced into the booming e-commerce space.
We are losing so much revenue in that area. So that informed our decision to choose e-commerce, for instance. And therefore, once we know that if the staff is well equipped with the skills, they can deliver to get revenue for the various states, I think it will be proper that we do such workshops to help the various states.
The 3-day workshop will allow member states to adopt techniques from other participating countries to improve upon their auditing services. For Joy Business, Karen Dudu.
In other stories tonight, the country is still at high risk of debt distress. This was contained in the latest debt sustainability statistics put together by the World Bank and the IMF. There's more in the following report.
To the World Bank and IMF, the country risk of external and overall debt distress continues to remain high. This warning is coming at a time Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has announced several measures that should in the medium to long term help reduce the debt numbers, which stood at 198 billion cedis ending March this year. The Washington-based lenders in their latest report affirmed the country's status are still high because government has breached two of the debt sustainability analysis, like debt service into export and external debt service to revenue. The classification is more of a warning to investors and those that deal with the country that government could struggle to pay its debt on time because of its rising expenditure. In assessing the country's ability to pay its debt, the IMF and World Bank do not only look at the debt to GDP ratio, but also the present value of the debt to the GDP ratio, present value of debt to export, debt to revenue ratio, debt service to export, and debt service to revenue ratio. Meanwhile, in a separate report released by the World Bank, it is also warning that it does not see the classification being reviewed anytime soon. This is because vulnerabilities associated with debt service remains high. The bank also argues the debt outlook remains very high and prone to some shocks. The bank also sees the various stress tests done show that the economy is exposed to some serious shocks if revenue from exports decline. This warning could impact negatively on the country's cost of borrowing and even the private sector as well. Some have also argued that the situation could also impact negatively on the Ghana cedi in terms of stability if the situation should get out of hand.
The Central Regional Minister Kwabena Duncan says about 82.7% of 81 liquefied petroleum gas stations in the central regions have been labeled as high risk by the National Petroleum Authority. Details plus more coming up in our local news summaries tonight.
According to the Central Regional Minister, about 82.7% of 81 liquefied petroleum gas stations in the central region have been labeled as high risk by the National Petroleum Authority. He disclosed this at the NPA organized town hall meeting that a risk assessment exercise of all LPG retail outlets across the region revealed that 67 out of 81 were found to pose high risk to lives and property in the region. Okra District Assembly starts the Reverend for Food and Jobs program with a presentation of 1,000 birds to 100 farmers selected from various communities. This government initiative to complement the Planting for Food and Jobs program will benefit about 2,000 people in the district. Companies that foster the culture of silence with regard to sexual harassment have been advised to desist from such acts. Speaking on Joy Business Masterclass show on July 16th, Samuel Jabin urges organizations to respond and deal with issues of sexual harassment courageously instead of scapegoating, wrongly placing blame or covering up the incidents.
Thanks so much for watching. I have more business news. Welcome back to business. Civil society organization Civil Society Scorecard is demanding for more clarification and on the discretionary powers of the energy minister in giving out oil blocks under the competitive bidding process. The group wants to know what happens if more than one company expresses interest in a block. All these issues came up at the launch of the Civil Society Scorecard report on Ghana's first upstream oil and gas round in Accra. And joining me on the phone line is coordinator of the Civil Society Scorecard. He's in the person of Gideon Pisa. Hello, Gideon. Good evening. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks.
All right, so Gideon, first of all, you're asking for clarity and also justification of the discretionary powers by the energy minister in giving away oil blocks under the competitive bidding. Well, he operates within the mandates of the law. So what do you actually want? An amendment of the laws?
No, not really. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and then good evening to your viewers. You will realize that in every game, you set the rules before the game starts. Now, when you read Section 10(8) of the Petroleum and Exploration Production Law 2016, Act 919, it prescribes that when a company expresses interest in a block through direct negotiation, and then it is more than, what happens is that it triggers an automatic competitive bidding process. But when you also look at Section 10(9), it also permits that the minister, in consultation with the commission, that is the Petroleum Commission, can enter into a petroleum agreement for direct negotiation. But so far, the information that has been shared to us by the ministry on the petroleum blocks earmarked for direct negotiation indicates that more than one company has expressed interest in each block. So, as a matter of fact, we do not know whether the minister intends to go for open and competitive bidding processes, or would want to use his discretion in going ahead with a negotiation. So that is where the issue is, because we did not set the rules before that. We are now at that stage that we do not know what will be done.
All right, so you're saying information available. Where are you picking this information from? Because I know that there's no particular website where you can actually get all this information from. So where did you pick this from?
Okay, so this has to do with our examination of the Petroleum General, and then the Petroleum Exploration Law 2016 Act 919. These are the key laws which guide the process in licensing and then bidding. But when you go to the website, you realize that an official website has also been announced for this process. Now, the intent of this website is to serve as a channel of communication and one-stop shop for information to be uploaded, so that citizens can go there and then get information when there are releases, when there are all that. But as we speak to you now, that website, in its current position, does not have the needed amount of information that we want. Most of the releases which have come up came through Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and then all that. It is very good that we leverage on new digital media, but the purpose for which money was spent in developing this website should serve the purpose.
Quite worrying anyway. But let's move on. On the scorecard itself, a pre-qualification stage scored 64.5%, which is grade C. How do you arrive at this finding, and what's your methodology? Okay, thank you.
So we leverage on a four-tier approach. The first being key informant surveys. What we did was that we developed a set of questionnaires, and then we sent them to oil and gas experts, including key members of the licensing and bid rounds set up by the Minister of Energy, to gauge their opinions on key issues, and also to have them assign weight. Which of these issues do they think that should be a matter of concern and then priority? So we use key informants. We also perform the legal analysis. As I mentioned, there are two key laws which are governing the process: the Act was stated in them, and then the issues of compliance, whether we were complying to the provisions in those laws or not. We also perform what we call a political economy analysis of the issues. You realize that Ghana is a small open economy, and then as a matter of fact, global issues do have a tendency of affecting us. So in the course of the process, we take intelligence on discussions which were going on in other nations. Mind you, Ghana is not the only country in Africa performing licensing rounds. Madagascar is doing that. Liberia is doing that. There are a whole lot of countries who are doing that. So we pick signals from that, and then we also pick internal signals to find out what are the issues, what are the implications of the processes. So that guided us in performing a political economy analysis. And then lastly, we use the scorecard system. The scorecard system, we look at existing literature subjects, and then we develop 4 thematic areas. So number 1, we looked at compliance with the laws and regulations, and then we assigned a weight of 45%. Secondly, we looked at the transparency of the processes, how information has been provided, whether they are adequate, whether they are sufficient enough, and then we provided a weight of 25%.
Okay.
We also looked at the rationale, the minister's rationale in the use of discretionary powers. We assigned a weight of 20%, and then the involvement of CSOs and other government actors, and then we assigned a weight of %. So when we put all this together, it gives us 100%. So at the end of the government, I think 65% approximately, and then that becomes how come we
arrived at the grade C, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the citizens' assessment of the whole process, the bidding process?
The citizens' assessment, C, we would say C is an average, but we came out with key findings, and then we want the ministry to accept these recommendations in order to ensure that going forward the process becomes better.
Okay, before I let you go, will you recommend that we have an independent body, another independent body like what PIAC does to provide independent oversight of licensing processes?
Thank you very much. You realize that the role that PIAC is playing is very key in our revenue management, the use of our revenues, providing a platform for debate of our revenue. If we could institutionalize an independent body to serve as an accountability and then provide external oversight over oil contracting negotiation issues. Currently, when you look at the composition of the licensing and bid round, it does not have the civil society representation, and then all these are state institutions forming up membership of the bid round. So we would suggest that if this body can be institutionalized to provide external oversight like what PIAC go along with.
All right, I'm sure you know that's certainly going to come with an extra cost, but thank you so much for your time, Gideon, for your insights on the bidding process currently ongoing. To other stories now, Cocoa Board is taking steps to ensure the required legal backing for the new pricing mechanism for purchasing cocoa beans from 2021. This was after it settled on $2,600 as the new floor price for cocoa beans sold by Ghana and Ivory Coast. We have more in the Business Desk report.
To ensure that the new price due for cocoa farmers is not affected in any way in case there is a change in government or even a change in management of Cocoa Board. We understand that the necessary documents are currently being worked on, or the drafting of the required laws are almost complete. This should be laid before Parliament for the necessary approval. The move should ensure that the proposed $2,600 as the floor price gets the required legal support. It would also give some legal backing to the planned stabilization fund that Cocoa Board also wants to set up, in addition to the $2,600 new floor price of cocoa bean sales for 2021. Cocoa Board, together with the Ivorian counterparts, have worked on new deals to help improve upon the fortunes of cocoa farmers in their respective countries. Some analysts have argued if this move is well structured, it should help deal with complaints of some farmers that they are not getting what they are due for their produce.
Crude oil dropped 45 cents on last Tuesday's trading price to sell at $66.05 a barrel. Gold made a huge gain to trade at $1,421.38 an ounce. The commodity news update is next. that's all for business for now with me, Sandra Esenam Apeni. I'll see you tomorrow, same time. But for more news, do log on to our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Have a great evening.